For reasons I won't bore you with, I'm a council tax expert in every sense of the word. I have collected it, I have calculated it, I have studied it academically, I have talked about it, I've written reports on it, I'm writing a book on it. I am a council tax expert. And here follows a rant from somebody who absolutely knows what she's talking about. Council tax was designed, I believe, so that we would hate the bits of the system that are so painfully awful, so that we wouldn't look at the damage that council tax is doing as a system as a whole. Bear with me. So council tax, and some of the common complaints around council tax are that things like it's regressive, which means that people in lower value properties or from poorer communities pay disproportionately more of their income in council tax than millionaires living in Kensington and Chelsea. You pay more proportionally more council tax in the northeast than you do in the leafiest parts of the Cotswolds. It's regressive. It's regressive in terms of people in lower value bands just pay a lot more than you go up the council tax bands. It's really stupid in terms of things like we talk about 1991 property values, and when we all go, well, that's crazy. It's kind of crazy, kind of not. We do adjust property values when we're calculating council tax, but it's still a stupid system. It's terrible when we talk about debt collection. Martin Lewis talks quite a lot about the way in which we collect council tax kind of is different to the way that we collect other debts, and it's much harsher, and he's not wrong. In England, you can still technically go to prison for not paying your council tax. So many problems with council tax. But those things are awful. I absolutely have it. But those are the red herrings. Those are the things that we're focusing our attention on, when really the problem is the way in which we fund public services through council tax. Now, we fund public services in this country in kind of one of two ways. We put all our money through things like income tax, VAT, national insurance. We put it all into a big pot, and the government distributes the spending of that money nationally. And we all decide how we vote on how we decide that's based on, but social policy and public policy then decides who gets that money and who doesn't. And it's things like the NHS. Stick with the NHS on this one, it's going to come back to us. Now, the second way we fund things is locally through, you guessed it, council tax, and also business rates, but council tax. Now, council tax pays for things like social care and education. Not in full. But it used to be that we paid about 35% of our social care budgets on things like from council tax. So council tax represented about 35% of the money that we had to spend. Since austerity, and since local government in particular bore the brunt of austerity, and our local services have been drained of money, council tax now pays for the bulk of our local services. So more so than ever, council tax is allowing some communities to prosper and others to decline because of the way in which we fund services. Not the single person discount, not the regressive banding, not the 1991 property values, the actual existence of council tax itself. It's got to go. Now, we put our money locally into things like social care and education, but communities that can afford to pay more council tax, leafy, prosperous, wonderfully rich communities, they can afford to pay, they pay more council tax. Their council collects more. So their services, which they don't need as much, I could go into the social determinants of health and the wider determinants of health, but you know instinctively, richer communities need less social care. Poorer communities, and I've been part of research that has looked into this, poorer communities and those claiming lots of benefits, for example, they need social care more. Those communities can't pay for it. So their services decline. So those communities decline. So their services decline. So you can see where I'm going. We have drawn artificial boundaries around communities and asked them to pay for their own services. Now, back in the early 90s, late 80s, that kind of made a little more sense because we existed more as economic communities of place than we do now. So we worked, lived and spent our money much more in our local economy than we did our national economy. That has since changed. And we know why. Again, instinctively, you know why. Tesco's not local. Your Sainsbury's isn't local. Amazon isn't local. The stuff that we spend our money on is not local stuff anymore. And so we don't live as much as economic communities of place as we used to. Lots of reasons why council tax is terrible. And So what we've got is communities circling the drain because they can't afford their services. Now, remember I said, think about the NHS and keep that in your mind. If we asked communities to pay for their own hospitals, we'd instinctively know that that was a stupid policy decision. We couldn't ask the people of, say, Blackburn to pay for their own hospital. Blackburn Hospital is like a town. It's like a small town now, massive. And we know that that's because we pay into this big pot and we all have hospitals that work. The people of Blackburn could not afford that hospital. But we're asking the people of Blackburn to pay for their own social care and their own education, because that's the way we fund these services. Now, we call these locally delivered services, but those services are no less locally delivered than that local hospital. They're no less locally delivered than, big national stuff like the NHS. But we still call them local services. Education is not local service. If we have a national, department for education, we have a department for social care and education. We have social care is no less of a national priority than health and hospitals. And yet we fund it and treat it entirely differently, and we call it a local service. It's not. This is the problem with council tax. That's it. That's the problem with council tax. It shouldn't exist. Instead, services like social care and education and public health ought to be paid for out of national pots of money. It used to be this way. Some local taxes have always kind of existed, but right now, more than ever, council tax has got to go. Now, why hasn't council tax been eradicated before now? Point one is it brought down Margaret Thatcher, and a lot of politicians just wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot barge pole because it is the hottest of political potatoes, but it's not. I'd absolutely vote for somebody who scrapped council tax, and I think you would as well. So I think now's the time to really think about the way we live. If we want to be one community, if we want to be one country, one nation, all of this that we're all talking about at the moment, then we need to think about the way that we pay for stuff. And the way that we pay for stuff is wrong, because council tax is just the worst. We really need better policy. We really need to get rid of council tax, but not for the reasons that you think.